The pain in my arm wasn't the worst part. That honor went to the realization that I'd felt this exact sensation before, bone snapping, the sickening crunch that echoes in your teeth, except last time I wasn't 7 months pregnant. I pressed myself against the bathroom wall, cradling my right arm against my swollen belly, trying to keep my breathing quiet. Michael was still out there, pacing the living room, his footsteps heavy with that particular rhythm that meant he wasn't done yet. "Valerie, baby, come on out. You know I didn't mean it." I'd heard that voice before. Syrupy sweet, like nothing had just happened. Like my arm wasn't bent at an angle that made my stomach heave. My phone was clutched in my left hand, screen cracked from where it had hit the floor during, I couldn't even call it a fight. Fights require 2 participants. This was just him and his fists and my body getting in the way. I pulled up my messages with shaking fingers, found my sister Jade's contact. Typed with my thumb. "Jade. He broke my arm. I'm 7 months pregnant. Please help. 2847 Morrison Avenue, apartment 3B. Hit send." Prayed she'd come before he broke something else. My phone buzzed almost immediately. "Who is this?" I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. Wrong number. I'd somehow texted a wrong number while my boyfriend was tearing our apartment apart looking for me. "Valerie." Michael's voice was getting closer. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The bathroom door was cheap, hollow-core. I'd watched him put his fist through the bedroom door last month. This one wouldn't last. I typed back frantically, my thumb slipping on the blood-smeared screen. "Please help. Boyfriend broke my arm. I'm pregnant. He's going to hurt the baby. Please." Another buzz. Address. Now. Something about the message, the authority in those 2 words, the complete absence of questions or hesitation, made me type faster than I'd ever typed in my life. 2847 Morrison Avenue, apartment 3B, Los Angeles. Please hurry. Don't move. I'm coming. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. I'd be dead in 8 minutes. Or worse, the baby would be. I heard Michael in the kitchen, the sound of drawers opening and slamming. Looking for something. The knife block, probably. He'd threatened it before, but never actually. No. I couldn't think about that. Couldn't let my mind go there. I was 26 years old, 7 months pregnant, with a broken arm and a man outside the door who I'd been dating for 3 years. 3 years of promises that he'd change, that he'd get his temper under control, that the next time would be different. Except the next time was always worse. My thumb hovered over Jade's actual contact. I should call her. Should call 911. Should do something other than trust a stranger who'd responded to a wrong number text. But I remembered what happened last time I called the police. Michael's charming smile, his badge from the security company he worked for, his explanation that I'd fallen down the stairs and was overly emotional due to the pregnancy. The cops had believed him. They always believed him. "Valerie." Michael's voice was right outside the bathroom door now. Calm. Reasonable. The voice he used when he was at his most dangerous. "Come out. We need to talk about this like adults." Adults. Like I was the child here. Like I was the one who'd exploded because dinner was 10 minutes late, because I'd been in the bathroom throwing up again, because pregnancy made everything taste like metal and soap. "I'm sorry," I whispered, hating myself for it, but buying time was all I had. "Just give me a minute." "You've had enough minutes." His palm slapped against the door. "Open up. Now." I counted seconds in my head. The mysterious responder said 8 minutes. That was, I checked my phone 4 minutes ago. 4 more minutes. 240 seconds. The baby kicked, a flutter against my hand. She'd been so active lately, like she was practicing for the outside world. Like she had no idea the outside world was this, her father's fist, her mother's fear, violence painted over with apologies. "Please," I whispered to her, to God, to whoever was listening. "Please let him get here in time. Please let this be real." My phone buzzed again. "What's your name?" I typed, "Valerie Brooks." "Valerie. My name is Daejung Kong." I'm 6 minutes away. Is he armed? Was he? I didn't know. Probably. Michael had a gun somewhere, I'd seen it once. But I typed. I don't know. Maybe. Stay hidden. Help is coming. The bathroom door rattled. Valerie, I'm counting to 3. You know what happens when I count to 3. I did know. I had the scars to prove it. 1. My heart was a drum against my ribs, so loud I was sure Michael could hear it. 2. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Like she was telling me to fight. To survive. To protect her. 3. The door exploded inward. Michael filled the frame, 6'2" of rage and muscle, his blue eyes flat and empty. He'd rolled up his sleeves. That's how I knew this was bad. When he took the time to roll up his sleeves, it meant he was planning to take his time. There you are, he said softly. Now, let's talk about respect. Michael grabbed me by my hair, yanking me up from where I'd wedged myself between the toilet and the wall. The pain in my broken arm was blinding, white-hot, and I heard myself scream, "Raw animal." Shut up, he hissed, dragging me toward the living room. The neighbors are going to think I'm killing you. You are, I wanted to say, but my voice was gone, swallowed by pain and terror. He threw me onto our threadbare couch, and I curled around my belly instinctively, protecting her even as my arm screamed in protest. Michael loomed over me, his fists clenched, and I saw it in his face, the decision. Whatever line he'd been towing for 3 years, he was about to cross it. You texted someone, he said. Who? Wrong number, I gasped. I was trying to text my sister, I swear. Liar. He raised his fist. That's when the world exploded. Not the door this time, the entire door frame, splintering inward like it had been hit by a truck. Except it wasn't a truck. It was men. So many men I couldn't count, flowing into my tiny apartment like a dark tide, all in black suits, moving with coordinated precision. Michael spun around, his face going pale. What the? He didn't finish. One of the men, massive, built like he was carved from granite, grabbed Michael by the throat and lifted him off his feet like he weighed nothing. But it was the man who walked through the ruined doorway that made my breath catch. He wasn't particularly tall, maybe 5'10", but he commanded the space like gravity bent around him. Mid-30s, Korean, with features that looked carved from stone and eyes that swept the apartment, cataloging everything before landing on me. Those eyes, dark, intense, softened fractionally when they saw my broken arm, my swollen belly, my face. Ms. Brooks. His voice was quiet, controlled, with the faintest accent. He crossed to me in 3 strides, and I realized the other men were waiting for his signal, frozen in positions around the apartment like chess pieces. My name is Daejung Kong. You texted me for help. I could only stare. This couldn't be real. People didn't respond to wrong number texts with an army. Let me go. Michael was struggling against the man holding him, his face purple. This is my apartment. That's my girlfriend. You can't just. Daejung's gaze shifted to Michael, and the temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. You broke her arm, he said, his voice still quiet, still controlled. While she's 7 months pregnant with your child. That's none of your business. It became my business when she asked me for help. Daejung stepped closer to Michael, and despite being shorter, he somehow seemed to tower over my boyfriend. And I take such requests very seriously. One of the other men approached me, younger, with kind eyes. Ms. Brooks, I'm Taehyun. There's a doctor waiting in the car downstairs. May I help you up? I nodded mutely. Taehyun supported my left side gently, carefully avoiding my broken arm as he helped me stand. My legs were shaking so badly I could barely walk. Where are you taking her? Michael demanded. You can't kidnap my girlfriend. Daejung turned back to me, ignoring Michael completely. Valerie, may I call you Valerie? I nodded again. Valerie, I'm taking you to get medical care. Your arm needs to be set, and we need to make sure the baby is safe. Is that acceptable to you? The fact that he asked, that he gave me a choice when Michael never had, made something crack inside my chest. Yes, I whispered. Please. Wait, Michael started. Dae-jung held up one hand, and Michael's voice cut off abruptly. When Dae-jung spoke, his voice was so soft I barely heard it, but the menace underneath was unmistakable. If you move, if you speak, if you so much as breathe wrong, my associate Mr. Song will break something important. Do you understand? Michael, for the first time since I'd known him, looked genuinely afraid. As Taehyun guided me through the destroyed door frame, I looked back once. Dae-jung was still standing there, staring at Michael with those cold, assessing eyes. We'll discuss your future shortly, he said. I suggest you use this time to reflect on your choices. Then he turned and followed us out, and I heard him speaking quietly into his phone in Korean as we descended the stairs. I counted 17 men in the parking lot. 17 men in black suits, standing at attention like soldiers. For me, a stranger had sent 17 men, no, more, I'd lost count, to save me. Who is Dae-jung Kong? The back of the black SUV had been converted into something resembling a mobile medical unit. An older Korean man with gentle hands and a doctor's calm helped me onto a modified seat that could recline. Ms. Brooks, I'm Dr. Choi, no relation, he said with a small smile, gesturing at Dae-jung who'd slid into the front passenger seat. Let me examine your arm. The SUV pulled away from my apartment complex, and I watched through the tinted windows as we left behind 3 years of my life. The building looked shabby in the afternoon light, paint peeling, the parking lot cracked and weedy. I'd lived there with Michael since we started dating, and I'd never noticed how run down it was. How small. How much like a prison. This will hurt, Dr. Choi warned before touching my arm. It did. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood, but I didn't cry out. The baby kicked, frantic flutters against my hand. She's very active, I said, needing to focus on something other than the pain. Dae-jung turned slightly in his seat. I don't know for sure. I feel like she's a girl. I looked down at my belly. Is that stupid? No. His voice was firm. Mothers often know. Dr. Choi worked quickly, stabilizing my arm with an inflatable splint. Both radius and ulna are fractured. Clean breaks, fortunately, but you'll need surgery to set them properly. We're taking you to St. Catherine's Hospital. They have an excellent orthopedic team and a high-risk pregnancy unit. I can't afford, the words came automatically. Already handled, Dae-jung said. But you don't even know me. My voice cracked. You don't know anything about me except I texted the wrong number. He turned fully now, those dark eyes studying my face. I know your boyfriend broke your arm while you're 7 months pregnant. I know you were terrified enough to text a stranger for help. I know you have bruises on your neck from fingers. His jaw tightened. That's enough. But why? Why would anyone? Because no one helped my mother. The words dropped into the space between us like stones into still water. Dr. Choi's hands paused briefly on my arm before continuing their careful work. Taehyun, driving, said something soft in Korean. Dae-jung replied in the same language, his voice tight. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't apologize. He turned back to face forward. Just let us help you. At the hospital, things moved with surreal efficiency. Dr. Choi had called ahead. Somehow they were expecting us. I was whisked into a private room where an orthopedic surgeon examined my arm. A high-risk OB checked the baby, heartbeat strong, measuring right on track, active and healthy, and a nurse documented every bruise, every cut, every injury with photographs and careful notes. For the police report, she explained gently. No police, I said automatically. Please. His cousin is. Officer Ryan Mitchell, yes, Dae-jung said from where he stood by the window, somehow both present and giving me space. We're aware. This documentation is for your protection, should you need it. But we won't file a report without your consent. The nurse glanced at Dae-jung, then back at me. You're in good hands, honey. I wondered what she meant by that. Who did she think Dae-jung was? My brother? A friend? She treated him with a deference that suggested she knew exactly who he was, even if I didn't. After the surgery, pins and a cast, my arm immobilized but stable, I was moved to a recovery room. The medication made everything fuzzy around the edges, but I was aware of Daejung still there, making quiet phone calls in Korean, his presence somehow both comforting and terrifying. When I finally worked up the courage to ask, my voice was slurred with painkillers. "Who are you?" "Really?" He set down his phone and walked to my bedside. For a long moment, he just looked at me, and I saw something in his expression, calculation, maybe, or decision. "I'm someone who can make sure your boyfriend never hurts you again," he said simply. "The question is, will you let me help you?" I should have been afraid. This stranger, these men, this situation that felt like something out of a movie. But all I felt was tired. So tired of being afraid, of being hurt, of protecting a man who'd never protected me. "Yes," I whispered. "Please help me." Something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, perhaps, or relief. "Then sleep, Valerie. When you wake up, everything will be different." I believed him. And for the first time in 3 years, I slept without fear. I woke up in a room that wasn't mine. Panic hit first, white walls, unfamiliar ceiling, the antiseptic smell, but then I remembered. Hospital. Surgery. Daejung Kang and his small army of men in black suits. My right arm was heavy with the cast, elevated on pillows. My left hand instinctively went to my belly. The baby kicked immediately, like she'd been waiting for me to check in. "She's fine." I turned my head. Daejung sat in the chair by the window, laptop open, looking like he'd been there for hours. Maybe he had been. The light outside suggested early morning. I'd slept through the night. "The doctors monitored her all night," he continued. "Strong heartbeat. No signs of distress from the trauma. She's a fighter." "Like her mom," I said, then immediately felt stupid. I wasn't a fighter. Fighters didn't spend 3 years getting beaten by men who claimed to love them. But Daejung's expression softened. "Yes, like her mom." A nurse came in, different from last night, younger, with bright eyes and a cheerful demeanor that felt jarring against my reality. She checked my vitals, adjusted my and asked about my pain level. When she left, she smiled at Daejung like they were old friends. "How long do I have to stay here?" I asked. "The doctors want to monitor you for 24 hours. Make sure there are no complications with the baby." He closed his laptop. "After that, you'll need somewhere safe to recover." Safe. The word felt foreign. "I can't go back to the apartment." "No." His tone made it clear that wasn't even a possibility. "I've arranged alternative accommodations." "I can't afford." "Valerie." He stood, crossing to my bedside. "I'm going to stop you every time you say those words. Can't afford. Can't accept. Can't impose. Stop thinking about cost and start thinking about what you need." "I don't even know you," I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. "You keep saying you'll help, but I don't know why. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know who you are or what you do or why 17 men showed up to my apartment like soldiers," he finished quietly. "Yes." He was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching my face. Then he pulled the chair closer and sat, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. "My name is Daejung Kang. I'm 35 years old. I was born here in Los Angeles, Koreatown, but my parents immigrated from Busan. My father built businesses here. Restaurants, real estate, import, export. Some legitimate, some less so." My breath caught. "Less so." That was a delicate way of saying. "When I was 12, my father beat my mother so badly she lost her hearing in one ear. She never reported it. Stayed with him for another 5 years, until he finally beat her to death when I was 17. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hands were white-knuckled. No one helped her. Not the police, not our community, not the people who knew what was happening. Everyone looked away. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I took over my father's businesses that year. I was too young, too angry, too reckless. But I learned. I built what he started into something bigger, something more powerful." And I made rules. He looked at me directly. One of those rules: men who abuse women don't get second chances in my territory. Your territory? A small, humorless smile. I own or control most of the Korean businesses in a 30-block radius of Koreatown. Restaurants, markets, real estate, clubs. Some through legitimate means, some through less legitimate means. People come to me when they have problems the police can't or won't solve. I couldn't say it. Organized crime, he said simply. Yes. Though I prefer to think of it as community protection with flexible ethics. I should have been terrified. Should have demanded to leave to go back to where? Michael? The apartment where he'd broken my arm? So when I texted you by accident, I said slowly, asking for help from an abusive boyfriend. You triggered something I take very seriously. He stood, adjusting his cuffs, a nervous gesture that seemed out of place on someone so controlled. I won't let another woman die because no one helped. Not in my city. Not when I have the resources to stop it. What did you do to Michael? The question came out smaller than I intended. Nothing permanent. Yet? His eyes hardened. He's in police custody. Arrested for domestic violence, assault with serious bodily injury, child endangerment. The hospital documentation, the photographs of your injuries, your statement, it's enough to hold him. But Valerie, you need to understand something. What? Your boyfriend's cousin is a cop. He has connections. He will try to protect Michael, make this go away like it always does. The system that failed you before will try to fail you again. He moved closer, his voice intense. But I won't. If you let me, I will make sure Michael Carter never touches you again. Never even comes near you. But you have to trust me. Trust. Another word that felt foreign after years with Michael. I don't know how to trust anymore, I admitted. Then don't trust me yet. Just let me prove I'm worth trusting. He pulled out his phone, showed me photos of an apartment, bright, clean, with wide windows and pale wood floors. This is where I'm suggesting you stay while you recover. It's secure. Safe. Yours for as long as you need it. How much is the rent? Free. It's one of my properties. I can't. He held up one hand. You just had surgery. You're 7 months pregnant. Your boyfriend broke your arm. This is not the time for pride, Valerie. This is the time for healing. I stared at the photos. The apartment looked like something from a magazine, the kind of place I'd scroll past on rental websites, knowing it was so far out of my budget it wasn't even worth looking at the price. Okay, I whispered. Okay. He nodded once, satisfied. I'll have Taehyun prepare it for your discharge tomorrow. Dae-young. He paused at the door. Thank you. For coming. For helping. For everything. You don't need to thank me, Valerie. You just need to heal. After he left, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my hand on my belly, feeling the baby's steady movements. I'd left my apartment yesterday with a broken arm and no hope. I was in a hospital now with a cast, a recovery plan, and a dangerous stranger who'd promised to protect me. I didn't know which was more terrifying, the life I'd left behind, or the one I was stepping into. But the baby kicked again, insistent, alive. And I knew that whatever came next, I'd face it. For her. The apartment was everything the photos promised and more. Taehyun had picked me up from the hospital in another black SUV, this one with Dr. Choi in the back to monitor me during the drive. They'd helped me up 3 flights of stairs, no elevator, but better security, Taehyun explained, to a corner unit with windows that let in floods of afternoon light. Mr. Kong ensured the refrigerator is stocked, Taehyun said, giving me a tour like I was a hotel guest rather than a charity case. The bedroom has blackout curtains if you need to rest during the day. There's a panic button by the bed that connects directly to our security team. He showed me a small red button mounted on the nightstand. Press it if you need anything. Anything at all. Will someone always be watching? The thought should have been invasive, but after years of Michael's surveillance, checking my phone, tracking my location, demanding to know where I'd been, this felt different. This felt like protection rather than prison. Someone will always be within 2 minutes of this building, Taehyun confirmed. But we won't intrude on your privacy unless you call for help. After he left, I stood in the middle of the living room, taking it in. Pale hardwood floors. A couch that looked like it had never been sat on. A kitchen with granite countertops and appliances that probably cost more than my car. Windows overlooking a tree-lined street where people walked dogs and pushed strollers and lived lives that seemed impossibly normal. I'd lived in Los Angeles for 6 years, but I'd never lived like this. The baby kicked, and I realized I'd been standing frozen for several minutes. Okay, I said out loud, because talking to her had become a habit when I was alone. Okay, let's figure out how to be a person again. The bedroom had a queen bed with pristine white linens and more pillows than one person could possibly need. The bathroom had a deep tub, fluffy towels, and fancy soaps that smelled like lavender and honey. The closet had hangers waiting, empty space for a life I didn't have anymore. All my clothes were back at the apartment. My books, my photos, the few pieces of jewelry I owned, the painting I'd done in college that Michael had made fun of, but I'd kept anyway. My entire life was still there, in that cramped 2-bedroom with the peeling linoleum and the broken dreams. I sat on the edge of the bed, my broken arm heavy in its cast, and let myself cry for the first time since, when? Last night? Last week? I couldn't remember the last time I'd cried without being terrified Michael would hear me and get angry that I was making drama. My phone buzzed. A new number. This is Dae-young. How are you settling in? I stared at the message. When had he gotten my number? From the hospital, probably. Everything about this man seemed to involve information appearing when he needed it. Good. Thank you. The apartment is beautiful. I'm glad. Have you eaten? I looked at the time. Almost 6 p.m. I'd been discharged at noon. Had I eaten? I couldn't remember. Not yet. I'll bring dinner. 7 p.m. Korean food. If that's acceptable. Was he asking permission? This man who'd showed up with an army was asking if he could bring me dinner? Yes. Thank you. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a knock. I'd changed into clean clothes that Taehyun had brought from somewhere, leggings and an oversized shirt that accommodated my belly and cast. I'd washed my face, brushed my teeth with the new toothbrush I'd found in the bathroom cabinet. I felt almost human. Dae-young stood in the hallway with bags from a restaurant I didn't recognize. He'd changed from the suit to dark jeans and a simple black sweater that made him look younger, less intimidating. May I come in? He asked. I stepped back, letting him enter. He moved to the kitchen, unpacking containers with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. The smells were incredible, spices I couldn't name, meat and vegetables and rice that made my mouth water. I didn't know what you liked, so I brought variety, he said, setting out at least 6 different dishes. This is bulgogi, marinated beef. This is japchae, glass noodles with vegetables. Kimchi, of course. Rice. Myeok-guk, seaweed soup. My grandmother always says pregnant women need seaweed soup. Your grandmother sounds wise, I said, echoing something I'd heard him say at the hospital. He smiled slightly. She's terrifying, but yes, wise. We sat at the small dining table, and he served me portions of everything, showing me how to eat each dish, what flavors went together. I realized I was starving, hadn't eaten properly in days, maybe weeks. Michael's anger had made mealtimes tense, and pregnancy nausea had killed my appetite. But this food, with this man quietly explaining each dish, felt like the first real meal I'd had in forever. Can I ask you something? I said after a while. Of course. Why are you doing this? And don't say because of your mother. There are probably hundreds of women in LA being abused right now. You didn't show up with an army for them. He set down his chopsticks, considering. You texted me. That makes you my responsibility. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It's not. He was quiet for a moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Vulnerability, maybe, or uncertainty. The truth is, I don't entirely know. When I got your text, I was in a meeting discussing a real estate deal. boring routine. Then I saw your message and something shifted. You were terrified, pregnant, trapped. And I had the power to help. So I did. Just like that. Just like that. He met my eyes. Does there need to be a more complicated reason? Most people don't show up with 17 armed men for a stranger. I'm not most people. No, I said softly. You're really not. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. The food was incredible, each dish perfectly balanced. I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in years, the knot of tension in my shoulders slowly unwinding. What happens now? I asked eventually. With Michael. Daejeong's expression hardened. He's facing charges. With the hospital documentation and your statement, the DA is pursuing a felony. But his cousin will try to interfere. The system will try to protect him. So he'll get away with it. Not if I have anything to say about it. His voice carried that quiet menace I'd heard at my apartment. But Valerie, I need to know what you want. Do you want him prosecuted through the legal system? Do you want him gone in other ways? Do you want to disappear and start over somewhere he'll never find you? The questions hung in the air, heavy with implication. What do you mean by gone in other ways? I asked, though I thought I knew. I mean that there are solutions the legal system provides and solutions that I provide. The first is slow, uncertain, and requires your testimony and cooperation with a system that has already failed you. The second is fast, permanent, and doesn't require anything from you except permission. You're offering to kill my boyfriend. I'm offering to ensure he never hurts you or anyone else ever again. How that happens is up to you. I should have been horrified. Should have said no immediately, should have called the police, should have run screaming from this man who was calmly discussing murder over Korean food. But all I could think about was Michael's hands around my throat 3 months ago. The miscarriage I'd had 2 years ago after he'd pushed me down the stairs, the baby I'd never told him about because I knew he'd blame me. The constant fear that had become so normal I'd forgotten what safety felt like. I don't want him dead, I said finally. I want him in prison where he belongs. I want him prosecuted. I want the world to know what he did. Even though the system might fail you, then we make sure it doesn't. I met his eyes. You said you have resources. Use them. But do it legally. I don't want to become someone who solves problems with violence. I spent 3 years with someone like that. Something shifted in his expression, respect, maybe, or approval. All right. Legal means. But Valerie, that means you'll have to testify. Face him in court. Relive everything. I know. My voice was steadier than I expected. But if I don't, he'll do this to someone else. And I'll have to live with that. Dae-young nodded slowly. Then we'll make sure the legal system works this time. I have lawyers. Connections. Resources. Michael Carter will face justice for what he did to you. And his cop cousin? Will learn that his badge doesn't shield him from consequences when he's complicit in abuse. The promise in his voice was absolute. Trust me. There was that word again. Trust. I looked at this man I'd known for less than 48 hours, who'd saved my life, given me sanctuary, and was now promising to dismantle the system that had protected my abuser. Okay, I said. I trust you. And I meant it. 3 weeks passed in a blur of doctor's appointments, physical therapy for my arm, and quiet evenings in the apartment that still didn't feel like mine. Dae-young came by every few days, always with food, always asking permission before entering. We'd eat together, Korean dishes mostly, though once he brought Italian, and another time Thai, and talk about everything except the situation with Michael. He told me about growing up in Koreatown, about his grandmother who'd raised him after his mother died, about learning to run his father's businesses while still in college. I told him about growing up in Oakland, about my sister Jade who was in med school at Stanford, about studying art therapy before meeting Michael and losing myself entirely. You should go back to it, Dae-young said one evening over bibimbap. Art therapy. I'm 7 months pregnant with a broken arm and a criminal case pending. Not exactly prime employment conditions. After, he said. When things are settled, you should do what you love. I'd forgotten that was possible, doing what I loved. Michael had called art therapy hippie nonsense and insisted I get a real job as an administrative assistant. I'd been filing insurance claims for a medical office when I got pregnant, and he'd insisted I quit because his girlfriend didn't need to work. Maybe I said, not believing it. But Daejung looked at me like he did believe it, like he could see a version of me that I'd forgotten existed. On week 4, I finally worked up the courage to go outside. Dr. Choi had cleared me for light activity, and I was going stir-crazy in the apartment. There was a coffee shop 2 blocks away. I'd seen it from my window, watched people coming and going with paper cups and pastries, living normal lives. I wanted to try normal. I texted Daejung first, going to the coffee shop on Morrison. Is that okay? His response was immediate, of course. You don't need my permission to leave. But I'm sending Taehyun to shadow you from a distance. Just as a precaution. I should have argued. Should have insisted on independence. But the truth was, the idea of being completely alone in public terrified me. What if Michael was out on bail? What if his cousin came looking for me? Thank you, I texted back. The coffee shop was warm and busy, filled with people on laptops and students studying and couples sharing pastries. I ordered a decaf latte. Pregnancy had stolen my caffeine, and found a corner table where I could watch the street. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I know where you are, bitch. You think you can hide forever? My blood went cold. Michael. How did he have this number? How did he? Another text. Tell your Korean boyfriend he's dead. And so are you. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I looked around frantically, half expecting to see Michael's face in the crowd, but there were only strangers. I dialed Daehyun. He answered on the first ring. Valerie? What's wrong? He's texting me. Michael. He's threatening. He says he knows where I am. Stay where you are. Don't move. I'm 5 minutes away. It was closer to 3 minutes. Daehyun burst through the coffee shop door, his eyes scanning until they found me. He crossed to my table in swift strides, his face tight with controlled fury. Show me. I handed him my phone with shaking hands. He read the messages, his jaw tightening, then made a call. Taehyun. Where are you? A pause. Good. Stay visible. I want him to see that she's protected. Another pause. Yes. Now. He hung up and sat across from me, taking my left hand in his. He's not here. He sent those texts from jail. Inmates can get contraband phones. But it doesn't matter. He can't reach you, Valerie. He knows this number. He knows. He knows nothing. He's guessing, trying to scare you. Daejung's thumb rubbed gentle circles on my hand. And it worked, which means we need to be more careful. I'm changing your number. Upgrading your security. And I'm moving his trial up. I have a judge who owes me a favor. You can do that? I can do a lot of things. His eyes met mine. Michael Carter made a mistake threatening you. Now he's going to learn what happens when you threaten someone under my protection. I don't want you to do anything illegal, I said. I meant what I said about. I know. Legal means only. His grip on my hand tightened. But legal doesn't mean gentle. Michael's cousin, Officer Ryan Mitchell, is about to face an internal affairs investigation for repeatedly dismissing domestic violence reports. Michael's bail is about to be revoked for violating no-contact orders. And his public defender is about to be replaced by someone who actually cares about victims. How? Because I'm good at what I do, Valerie. And what I do is protect people who matter to me. People who matter to me. The words hung in the air between us. I'm just someone who texted the wrong number, I said quietly. You stopped being just someone the moment I read that text. His voice was intense, his eyes locked on mine. You're under my protection now. That means something. It means I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do I matter so much? You barely know me. Daejung was quiet for a long moment. Then, my mother called for help 17 times before she died. 17 calls to police, to family, to friends. Everyone had excuses. Everyone looked away. I was 17 years old, listening to her beg for help that never came. His voice was rough with old pain. You called for help once, and I had the power to answer. That's enough. You're enough. Tears blurred my vision. I don't know how to be someone's enough. You don't have to know. You just have to be Valerie. That's all I'm asking. We sat there in that coffee shop, surrounded by people living normal lives, while I tried to process the fact that a man I'd known for 4 weeks cared more about my safety than the man I'd dated for 3 years had ever cared. Come on, Dae-young said gently. Let's get you home. Dr. Choi wants to check on you anyway. Make sure the baby's handling the stress. As we walked back to the apartment, Taehyun visible now, a solid presence 20 feet behind us, I realized something. I'd said home. The apartment I'd been living in for a month had become home. And maybe, terrifyingly, Dae-young was becoming something too. Something I wasn't ready to name yet. But something real. Continuing with chapters 7 to 9 in next response. Should I continue with the final 3 chapters? Michael's trial was set for 2 weeks before my due date. Is that safe? Dr. Choi asked when Dae-young told me. The stress could trigger early labor. She deserves to see justice served, Dae-young said. But Valerie, it's your choice. You can testify via video if you prefer. I looked down at my belly, 9 months now, huge and uncomfortable and beautiful. The baby girl inside me, because Dr. Choi had confirmed it, finally, was strong and healthy despite everything. She kicked constantly, like she was impatient to be born into a world that I was desperately trying to make safer for her. I'll testify in person, I said. I want him to see my face when I tell the truth about what he did. Dae-young's lawyers had prepared me extensively. Sophia Martinez, a fierce prosecutor who apparently owed Dae-young several favors, walked me through every possible question, every angle Michael's defense might take. They'll try to paint you as vindictive, she warned. They'll suggest you're making this up because the relationship ended badly. They'll point to the lack of police reports. Because his cousin is a cop who threatened me, I interrupted. Exactly. Which is why we're calling Officer Ryan Mitchell as a hostile witness. The internal affairs investigation revealed 15 dismissed domestic violence calls, 6 of which involved his cousin. He's facing suspension and possible criminal charges for obstruction of justice. I felt a savage satisfaction at that. Ryan had looked me in the eye after Michael broke my ribs and told me I needed to stop being so dramatic. Now he was facing consequences. The morning of the trial, I woke up to contractions. Not labor, Braxton Hicks, Dr. Choi confirmed when Dae-young called him in a panic, but enough to make me breathless and shaky. We can postpone, Dae-young said, his hand on my shoulder as I breathed through another contraction. Your health comes first. No. I grabbed his hand. No postponing. I'm testifying today. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'll be there. Front row. You look at me if you need strength. The courthouse was downtown, all marble and intimidation. Sophia met us at the entrance, flanked by 2 of Dae-young's men who'd been assigned as my security detail. Ready? She asked. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Michael sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed, looking thinner and meaner than I remembered. When he saw me walk in, very pregnant, very visible, his face twisted with rage. Dae-young was beside me instantly, his hand at the small of my back, guiding me to my seat. He sat in the front row, exactly where he'd promised, his presence solid and unwavering. When Sophia called me to testify, I walked to the stand with my head high. My hands shook as I placed my left hand on the Bible. My right arm was finally out of the cast, but still weak and scarred. State your name for the record. Valerie Brooks. Then, because it felt important, just Valerie Brooks. I never changed my name for him. Michael's lawyer was exactly what I expected, expensive suit, condescending smile, questions designed to make me look unstable. Ms. Brooks, you claim my client broke your arm. But you didn't report it to police, did you? No. Why not? Because his cousin is Officer Ryan Mitchell, who has repeatedly dismissed my calls for help and told me I was being dramatic. That's a serious allegation. That's a documented fact, Sophia interjected. Internal Affairs has confirmed it. The questioning went on for an hour. Every time I felt myself wavering, I looked at Dae-young. He sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on mine, and somehow that was enough. When Sophia asked me to describe the night Dae-young found me, I didn't hold back. I told them everything: the bathroom, the broken arm, Michael's threats, the terror. I showed them the scars. I showed them the medical records. I showed them the photographs of bruises and broken bones and 3 years of systematic abuse. And when you texted for help that night, Sophia asked, "Did you expect anyone to come?" "No," I said honestly. "I expected to die." Michael had that look, the one that meant he wasn't going to stop. I texted my sister because I didn't want to die without trying one more time, even if it was the wrong number. But someone did come. Yes. I looked at Dae-young. Someone came. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts: felony domestic violence, assault with serious bodily injury, child endangerment, violation of protective orders. Sentencing: 12 years, no possibility of parole for 8. When the judge's gavel came down, I felt something release in my chest, a knot I'd been carrying for 3 years, suddenly cut loose. Michael was screaming as they led him away, threatening me, threatening Dae-young, promising revenge. But his voice faded as the courtroom doors closed, and suddenly all I could hear was my own heartbeat and the baby's movements and Dae-young's quiet voice in my ear. "It's over. You're safe now." I turned to him, tears streaming down my face, and said the truest thing I'd ever said: "Thank you for coming when I called." His hand came up to cut my cheek, his thumb brushing away tears. "I'll always come when you call." And I believed him. Outside the courthouse, my phone buzzed. A text from Jade. "Just heard the verdict. I'm so proud of you, Val. You did it. Call me when you can. Love you." My sister. The one I'd meant to text that night. The one who would have come if she'd gotten the message, but who was 4 hours away at Stanford, too far to save me in time. Instead, my text had gone to exactly the right person. Sometimes mistakes are miracles in disguise. My daughter decided to make her entrance into the world at 2 a.m., 3 days after the trial. I woke up to wetness and cramping and the sudden, terrifying realization that this was happening. Now, ready or not. I called Dae-young first, before 911, before Jade, before anyone. He answered on the first ring. "Valerie, the baby's coming. I'm on my way. 5 minutes." It was closer to 3. I was still in my pajamas, trying to breathe through contractions that felt like my body was being split in half, when he burst through the door. "Dr. Choi is meeting us at the hospital," he said, his calm a sharp contrast to my panic. "Can you walk?" I nodded, then immediately shook my head as another contraction hit. Dae-young didn't hesitate. He scooped me up in his arms like I weighed nothing, even 9 months pregnant, and carried me down 3 flights of stairs to the waiting SUV. Taehyun drove like we were in an action movie. Dae-young held my hand in the back seat, coaching me through breathing like he'd done this before. "Have you?" I gasped between contractions. "Done this before?" "No. But I watched a lot of videos after you told me you were testifying. I wanted to be prepared in case." He gestured at me, at the situation. "You watched birthing videos for me?" "I told you. I'm very thorough." Despite everything, I laughed, then immediately groaned as another contraction hit. At the hospital, everything moved fast. Dr. Choi was waiting with an entire obstetrics team. I was wheeled into a delivery room while nurses hooked me up to monitors and checked my dilation and asked a dozen questions I barely registered. "Where's the father?" one nurse asked. "Not here," I said firmly. "In prison." "But he is." I pointed at Dae-young, who'd followed us in, and was standing awkwardly by the door like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. "You want him in the delivery room?" the nurse asked. I looked at Daejong, this man who'd answered a wrong number text with an army, who'd protected me and fed me and sat through a trial just to be my strength. Who'd watched birthing videos because he wanted to be prepared for this exact moment. Yes, I said. I want him here. He crossed to my bedside immediately, taking my hand. Are you sure? I'm sure. Labor was brutal and beautiful and terrifying and endless. 12 hours of contractions and pushing and swearing and Daejong's quiet voice in my ear, telling me I was strong. I was doing amazing, just a little more. Dr. Choi was steady and calm, monitoring the baby's heartbeat, adjusting my position, coaching me through each push. One more, he said. One more big push, Valerie. I squeezed Daejong's hand so hard I probably left bruises, bore down with everything I had, and a cry. Sharp and indignant and perfect. It's a girl, Dr. Choi announced, placing a tiny, screaming bundle on my chest. She was perfect. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of wrinkled, angry perfection, with a full head of dark curly hair and lungs that worked beautifully. Hi, baby, I sobbed, touching her tiny face. Hi, I'm your mama. I've got you. You're safe. She stopped crying at my voice, her unfocused eyes trying to find me. I looked up at Dae-young and found him staring at my daughter with an expression I'd never seen, wonder, maybe, or awe. Do you want to hold her? I asked. I don't know how. The nurse smiled. Sit down. We'll show you. He sat. The nurse placed my daughter in his arms, adjusting his hold, and I watched this dangerous man who commanded armies cradle my newborn like she was made of glass. She's so small, he whispered. She's perfect, I corrected. Yes. His eyes met mine over the baby's head. Perfect. What's her name? The nurse asked, clipboard ready. I'd been thinking about this for months. Had a list of possibilities. But looking at her now, in Daejong's arms, only one name felt right. Jade, I said. After my sister. Jade Hyun Brooks. Daejong's eyes widened. Hyun. It means wise and virtuous in Korean, right? I'd looked it up weeks ago, planning this moment. Your grandmother told me. I want her to have something from both worlds. From my family and from yours. His eyes were suspiciously bright. Valerie. You saved us both. You've been more of a father to her in 9 months than Michael ever would have been. You were here for her birth. You, my voice cracked. You matter to us. This matters. Jade Hyun Brooks, he said softly, testing it. Then in Korean, something I didn't understand, but that sounded like a blessing. Baby Jade chose that moment to grab Daejong's finger, her tiny fist closing around it with surprising strength. He laughed. Actually laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him. Hello, Jade, he said softly in Korean, then English. I'm going to protect you and your mother forever. That's a promise. And watching him hold my daughter, I knew he meant it. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. A text from my sister, the real Jade. Just got your message. Baby's here. I'm driving down right now. Don't you dare let her sleep before I get there to meet my namesake. I love you so much, Val. So proud of you. I smiled, tears streaming down my face. I'd meant to text Jade that night in the bathroom. Meant to call my sister for help. Instead, I'd texted a stranger who became family. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly right. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of a new apartment, bigger than the last one, with 2 bedrooms and a small balcony where Jade's swing hung, and watched Dae-young attempt to feed my daughter pureed sweet potatoes. She hates it, he said, as Jade turned her face away and smacked his hand. She's testing you. Keep trying. He tried again. Jade grabbed the spoon and threw it on the floor, then laughed, a delighted gurgle that made both of us smile despite the mess. See? I laughed. She's definitely got your stubbornness. She's 6 months old. How can she already be stubborn? Genetics. Also, you spoil her. I don't spoil her. I simply ensure she has everything she needs. You bought her a toy piano yesterday. She's 6 months old. It's never too early to appreciate music. I scooped Jade out of her high chair and kissed her cheek. She babbled happily, her dark eyes bright, completely unaware that she was the most loved baby in Los Angeles. We'd settled into a rhythm over the past months. Daejung came by every day, sometimes for breakfast, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to hold Jade while I showered or napped or remembered what it felt like to be a person instead of just a mom. He'd been patient, never pushing for more than I was ready to give, never demanding anything except the privilege of being in our lives. But things had shifted recently. Small touches that lingered, looks that held weight, the way my heart jumped when I heard his key in the lock. I'd started calling it his key 3 months ago, when I'd had a copy made and handed it to him without explanation. He'd understood. I always felt safer knowing he could get in if something happened. "Valerie," he said now, cleaning sweet potato off the floor. "Can we talk?" My stomach flipped. Those words never meant anything good. "Okay." He washed his hands, dried them carefully, then turned to face me. Jade was on my hip, chewing on her fist contentedly. "I know we've been taking things slow," he started. "And I understand why. You needed time to heal, to be independent, to figure out who you are outside of trauma. But I need to tell you something." He stepped closer. "I'm in love with you, Valerie. I have been for months. Maybe from the beginning, I don't know. But I wake up thinking about you and Jade, and I go to sleep wishing I was here instead of my apartment, and I spend my days looking for excuses to see you both." My breath caught. "Dae-young, let me finish." His voice was gentle but determined. "I don't need you to say it back. I don't need anything to change. But I needed you to know. You and Jade are my family. I want to protect you both forever. I want," he paused, vulnerability crossing his face. "I want everything. Marriage, more children, growing old together. But I'll take whatever you're willing to give me. Even if it's just this, being your friend, being Jade's father figure, being present in your lives." Tears blurred my vision. "You really watched birthing videos?" He blinked. "What?" "In the hospital, you said you watched birthing videos after I decided to testify. Just in case." I shifted Jade to my other hip. "You reorganized your entire life around a woman you'd known for a few weeks and a baby that wasn't even yours. You gave me space when I needed it, but never left. You learned to change diapers and make bottles and do the Shupat sleep technique. You installed cabinet locks and outlet covers and baby gates. You bought a toy piano for a 6-month-old. I love you," he said simply. "That's what you do when you love someone." "I know." I stepped closer, close enough that Jade could grab his shirt. "I know because I love you too." His eyes widened. "Valerie, I fought it, I admitted. I told myself it was too fast, too complicated, that I was just trauma-bonded to my rescuer. But Dae-young, you're not just the man who saved me. You're the man who taught me what safety feels like, what partnership looks like, what love is supposed to be." He cupped my face with one hand, his thumb brushing my cheek. "Are you sure? Because I need you to be sure. I'm not Michael. I will never be Michael. But my world is complicated and dangerous, and I need to know you understand what you're choosing." "I'm choosing you," I said firmly. "Complications and all. I'm choosing us." He kissed me then, gentle, reverent, full of promise. Jade squealed between us, delighted by the closeness. When we pulled apart, Dae-young rested his forehead against mine. "Marry me." Is that a question or a command? A plea. He smiled. "Marry me, Valerie. Let me be your husband and Jade's father legally. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that wrong numbers can lead to exactly the right place." I pretended to consider it. "Will your grandmother approve?" "She already has the wedding planned. She started the day you gave Jade her Korean name." I laughed, then sobered. "I want to go back to school first, art therapy, like you said. I want to stand on my own 2 feet, build my career, be someone besides just the woman you saved." "You're already someone," he said intensely. "But yes, let's do everything properly. School started, you building your practice, standing on your own and choosing me from a position of strength, not need. I'm already choosing you. Then choose me again in a year. After you've finished your first semester and opened your practice and proven to yourself that you don't need me. He grinned. And then we'll get married and fill this apartment with more babies and drive my grandmother crazy with happiness. More babies? Jade needs siblings. And I need to practice my sweet potato feeding skills. I kissed him again, deeper this time, with Jade squirming between us and babbling her approval. 1 year, I agreed. And then yes. To all of it. 1 year, he promised. I'm patient. Remember? 1 year later. I stood in the art therapy room of the Eastside Community Center, funded by Daejeong's foundation, where I now ran the trauma recovery program, watching a 7-year-old girl paint her feelings about her mother's abusive ex-boyfriend. My phone buzzed. Running late. Meeting went long. See you at dinner. Love you. I smiled and texted back, love you too. Jade is with your grandmother learning Korean children's songs. Good luck getting her to speak English ever again. His response, my grandmother's plan all along. She's recruiting Jade to the Korean side. The door opened. My sister Jade, the original Jade, poked her head in. She'd finished med school and was now doing her residency at UCLA Medical Center. Ready for the ceremony? She asked. Right. The ceremony. In my focus on the kids, I'd almost forgotten. The Los Angeles mayor was presenting me with an award for community service, specifically for developing a program that helped domestic violence survivors process trauma through art. The irony wasn't lost on me. At the ceremony, surrounded by cameras and officials and people who thought they knew my story, I accepted the award with baby Jade on my hip and Daejeong beside me. This program exists, I said into the microphone, because I texted the wrong number one night when I thought I was going to die. I was trying to reach my sister. I gestured at Jade standing off to the side, but instead I reached someone else. Someone who answered. Someone who came. Someone who refused to look away. I looked at Daejeong, who stood uncomfortable with public attention, but present because I'd asked him to be. I want every person in an abusive relationship to know, help exists. Hope exists. Life after trauma exists. You just have to reach out, even if it's to the wrong number. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right one. The applause was thunderous, but all I heard was baby Jade's happy babbling and Daejeong's quiet, I'm proud of you, as we left the stage. That night, in the home we now shared, because I'd finally moved into his penthouse after finishing my first semester with a 4.0 GPA, I put Jade to bed and found Daejeong on the balcony, looking out over the city. Thank you, I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind. For what? For coming. For staying. For loving us. He turned, pulling me close. Thank you for calling. Even if it was the wrong number. Best mistake I ever made. Not a mistake, he said, kissing my forehead. Fate. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Mom called. She saw you on the news. She's crying happy tears and wants you to call her. Also, she loves her granddaughter's name. Says I better get married and have kids soon so she can have more grandkids. No pressure. Love you, sis. You're amazing. I smiled, leaning into Daejeong's embrace. I'd meant to text my sister that night in the bathroom. Meant to call Jade for help. Instead, I'd texted a stranger who became family. And looking at the life we'd built, baby Jade sleeping peacefully in her nursery, my art therapy practice helping other survivors, Daejeong's arms around me on our balcony overlooking the city that had witnessed both my breaking and my healing. I understood something profound. Sometimes the universe knows better than we do. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Sometimes wrong numbers lead to exactly the right destination. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who saves you becomes the person you choose to spend forever with. Not because you need saving anymore, but because they taught you that love doesn't require survival mode. Love requires showing up, being present, and choosing each other every single day. Ready for bed? Daejeong asked, his voice soft in my ear. Ready, I said, taking his hand. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my practice. He'd go back to his businesses. We'd navigate the beautiful chaos of parenting and careers and building a life together. But tonight, we were just us. A family built from a wrong number text and a stranger's compassion. A family that chose each other. A family that proved sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes that turn out to be miracles. The end.